Welcome to the Finally Heard podcast, where it is attractive to be authentic. I'm your girl E, and here you can find your herd of people who have been labeled or personally identified with being the black sheep of their families or friend groups. This is a safe space where you can be finally here, finally happy, and finally heard. Welcome to episode 13. Woo! Episode 13 is entitled Heard If You Do and Heard If You Don't. So it's a play on another set of words that I hope you figure it out. Amen. I want to introduce you to this week's co-host, who is my sister from another mister, literally. This is my sister-in-law, or sister-in-love is what I like to say. Yes. Lamika. Yay! I found it this week. So Lamika, I have known Lamika for 15 years now. That's a long time, right? And she is the oldest sister of the Howell Mohicans. Because it's a lot of you. How was it growing up in a big family?
Because I'm the older sister, I had a lot of responsibility at a young age. Would I say it was fun? Not necessarily fun.
I guess not. Fun wasn't the first word that came to your mind.
Fun isn't the first word that comes to my mind, but it was a lot of responsibility. But I love my siblings very much, so it was great. It was great.
Good, very good. And Lamika is very smart. She does accounting and numbers and things. So I hope that you guys enjoy her during this podcast. So this week we are going to be talking about caregivers and caregiving and what that looks like. But first, we are going to go into our Hillsong Hits Song of the Week. All right, so we are going to go into our Hillside Hit Song of the Week. My song of the week is going to be extremely I don't want to say authentic. What's the word I'm looking for? Unconventional. So there's a little bit of backstory. When I was in high school, I went through like this white girl punk rock phase. And I don't know why, but it was like Pink, Avril Lavigne. Like it was I never dove in deep.
Got it.
But I did participate. Not with my dress, just with my music selections. Long story short, my song of the week is Ashley Simpson's Lala. It has been stuck in my head. I heard it in a store. Oh, you know how they play the music. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, this used to be my jam. And then I went in the car and I pulled it up like, oh, I remember that album. It was very nostalgic. And I can't get the song out of my head.
Wow. Yep. I don't even know if I know that song. Like you said, the title of it. I don't know if I know it.
I'm sure you don't.
Okay. All right. So my song of the week is "Be Lifted High" by Brandon. I'm not 100% sure what his last name is, but it's Anthem Nights. Very good song.
Oh, that's fantastic. It's gospel?
It is.
That's real saved of you.
Well, that's what I listen to.
That's very good. Is it what kind of gospel is it? Because it's several genres of gospel.
I guess this would be considered, is it trap? I don't know, but it's very much, but it has
trap.
It has a traditional feel to it because they mix in
traditional
old school songs. Yeah.
Oh, very good.
Maybe we can share the link to the video.
Yeah, we'll drop the link in the description so you guys can listen to. I am very surprised that Lamika is listening to trap gospel. This is impressive. I'm so proud of you. So those are our songs of the week. The reason why we do our songs of the week is because I have songs in my head all the time, and it is the neurodivergent part of me. And so if you guys have songs in your head this week, make sure you drop them in the comments. So our next segment is called What the Flock? You got to say it though. And you got to say it with your chest real hard.
Okay.
So go ahead.
What the flock?
Fantastic. Yes. Our next segment is called What the Flock? And this week, my What the Flock, I'll go first. This week, my What the Flock is, as you guys know, I graduated with my master's degree about a month ago. Thank you. Thank you. And we had a party this past weekend. And it was my open house. And my What the Flock moment is for people who don't want to RSVP to events. I don't know what is wrong with our culture that when somebody tells you they want a head count, what's wrong with wanting a head count? I just want to be able, I want to be able to feed you.
I think people don't want to make that initial commitment because so many things are going on. It's like, well, if I tell them yes that I'm coming, they don't have the option. They probably think they don't have the option to back out at the last minute. So maybe that's it.
So then this is an event that you would want to go to, in my opinion, because I'm going to RSVP for the events that I want to be at.
I agree.
And if I'm playing back and forth, I don't know if I'm going, I don't know if I'm feeling like it, then the person isn't as close to you as you think they are.
That's true.
Because for those who invite me to events and I'm available, I go. And I make sure I'm there, and I make sure if you need me to help or bring something or whatever, I do those things too.
Everybody's not like us.
I understand that, but it's really starting to get on my nerves. It's really starting to piss me off.
Maybe some individual conversations need to be had for people that are not RSVP.
Let me tell you what happened. It's a whole story affiliated with this.
Okay.
So my father's side of the family, he had 11 brothers and sisters. So it was 12 of them total, right? So 2 of them have passed, and so it's 10 remaining. There's no way in the world that I am going to be able to text or call each one of these people individually, as well as all of their children.
That's a lot.
Right? Because that's a lot of people. I don't even know where half of you people are in the country, right? So I call myself being smart, and I put the invitation on social media, right? It's on my Instagram, it's on Facebook. Hey, if y'all want to come, you'll come. Right. If you don't want to come, you don't feel obligated because I sent you a personal invite, right? Cool. So I get a phone call from my father who's screaming at me. How come you told so-and-so they couldn't come because they didn't RSVP? Mind you, I haven't had a conversation with so-and-so. I don't know what the hell he's talking about. And so I'm like, what do you mean? Like, what's the issue? Well, so-and-so, now mind you, all these so-and-sos are not the same people. So my uncle called my aunt called another aunt, that aunt called my daddy.
Wow.
So now there is a game of telephone in the family that I am a B, and I'm just not letting people come to the event. But nobody called me. Like, that's the part I don't understand. Like, if there were about 15 people, I told on social media, hey, RSVP by Monday. I knew they weren't going to RSVP by Monday. I just said Monday because I knew people was going to wait to the very last minute, and I needed to get the count for the food.
Right.
So I told them by Monday. I had about 15 people that reached out to me between Monday and Friday and said, hey, I'm just seeing the post. I apologize. Is it still okay for me to come?
Right.
Absolutely. Here's the address, right? They never even called me. They didn't text me. They didn't Facebook me. Nobody reached out to me. They created this whole situation all by themselves. Wow. And then called my daddy like they telling on me. Let me explain something to you. Freddie don't pay nothing over here. So if we talking about who's responsible, I am. Me and my husband. It's our house, it's our money, it's our party. Okay.
It was a great party too. I enjoyed
Thank
it.
you. I'm glad you had a good time, and I appreciate your help. If you were here, this is the sister that made the mac and cheese. And when I tell you, people called me the next day talking
No
about your mac
way.
and cheese.
Oh,
Absolutely,
that's great.
they
I'm
were
glad.
so like, how come she didn't make more?
I made 3 pans.
I know how much you made. It was, and they were sick that they did. It wasn't enough to
Oh,
pack up and take 6 carryouts home.
oh wow.
I tell you who
That's
did
great.
get a carry out, Freddie. My daddy got a carry out for sure. But the moral of the story is, if you also have family that just don't want to follow the directions, it never ends. If you are a young person that's like, oh, I just can't wait till I grow up, it doesn't matter if you grow up or not. They're still going to be them.
Right.
And I can say this because I know none of them even watch the podcast. So I can get this off my chest. That's my what the flock for the week.
Wow.
Call an RSVP. If y'all waiting on RSVPing for an event, just please just call. It is money that is affiliated with these parties that y'all don't even like. When people come, they usually don't even give the money back in the gift the plate paid for. You know what I'm
Wow.
saying? So just for a common courtesy, just RSVP.
RSVP means responding. Let the person know that you're coming.
Exactly. And all we
Many
need,
people don't know what RSVP means.
that is a stretch.
Okay, I'm just trying to.
That's a stretch.
Okay.
Do you have a what the flock for this week?
You know what I do? Since I have been traveling back and forth from Michigan,
Mhm.
I've opted for cheaper options when flying. And the
Bless
cheaper
your heart.
option that I have selected is Frontier Airlines.
Mm.
Frontier Airlines flight prices, if you get them early enough in advance, are not very expensive. However, they charge for a carry-on. It was $60.
$60 for a carry on?
$60.
Okay, wait. So there's many roles of carry on. Is this the personal or is this the actual carry on?
The actual carry-on. They let you get a personal,
Oh,
and then the
okay.
carry-on is $60.
That's a lot.
They got me one time, and then the last time I traveled, I just left stuff here.
Yeah, you did.
I didn't enjoy that, but I made it. So, yes.
That's crazy. And I'm a little prone. I'm a little privy to Delta.
You are.
I'm a little snobby
And it's okay.
because I used to work for a contractor and we got Delta benefits.
Okay.
Um, but I always wonder if people like I have a lot of friends that talk about flying Spirit, and Spirit is the way to go. And if you're trying to get somewhere fast, just buy a ticket on Spirit. First of all, I can't do the seats. I'm 250. Them seats are not conducive for anybody over about 185
Got it.
or over about 5'8" height wise,
Wow.
because they tight and they don't lean back. But also, you got to pay for water. You got to pay for food on the flight. You got to pay for a seat that go back. You got to pay for boarding. You got to pay for your check bags, your carry out. Like, do y'all realize that by the time y'all pay for all those things, you could have just bought a Delta ticket? Like,
I understand it now. I understand it. We learn as we go.
listen, if but for you, I understand because your flight was like an hour and a half tops, so you're not on the plane long, and then you're traveling frequently, so I get it.
Yeah.
But if I'm going somewhere and I'm gonna stay, I'm gonna use this Delta American Express and rack up some points
It makes sense though.
because I can't do it no more. I have been spoiled, and don't let me get a free upgrade to Comfort Plus.
You're fancy.
I'm gonna do this while I board. It's gonna be real ratchet. So yeah. All right. So on to our sheep happens segment. Sheep happens. So today again, we're gonna talk about the role of a caregiver. Lamika has been thrusted into being a caregiver in multiple scenarios. You want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes. So, I would call myself a caregiver. I have a son who has a mental health diagnosis of bipolar. That diagnosis happened right after his 19th birthday, which is almost 10 years ago.
Mhm.
And most recently, I would consider myself a backup caregiver for my dad, who um, has a diagnosis as well, physical diagnosis. So, yes.
That's crazy. And what would you say? Oh, well, I'll give my story.
Hmm.
So my father had a back injury when I was in the 8th grade, and he did damage to his first and second vertebrae, and he was paralyzed for 6 months. And they ended up doing a surgery, and actually, he's in a couple medical journals now because
Wow.
this surgery was an exploratory surgery, and it was the first of its kind. And so they removed a bone from his hip, and they shaved it down and like reshaped the bone and replaced his first and second vertebrae.
Wow.
Yeah. And so my father has a metal rod in the back of his neck, which is fusing those two, in place. And then obviously, if you see my dad, he walks with a little bit of a limp
Uh-huh.
because of the bone that they took out of his hip. And so when all of this happened when I was 13,
Wow. You were
yeah,
a
I was,
child.
yeah. And my sister was graduating from high school. It was her senior year, the sister right over me.
Hmm.
And then my oldest sister was at Eastern. So, yeah, there was uh, a time where I was taking care of my father pretty much solely. After he was in the hospital for almost 6 months, and after they did the surgery, he had to be in traction, where they literally screw a halo into his head to keep his neck still so that it
Wow.
heals completely. And then they had the back of it hooked up to the wall. So he couldn't, like, bend his head forward or backward. And
Wow.
so when he came home with the halo on. So they're like, "Oh yeah, you got to clean the screws." I'm like, "Who got to clean the screws?" So I used to have to clean the screws that were screwed into his head, and then I used to have to clean the his surgery site, and then he had uh something under his arm where they had to remove something under his arm. I think it was a cyst or something, and then I had to do the dressings for that for like 4 months. And then he had double knee replacement, and then I had to help him with it was like every time something on his body healed, something else broke. And so my mama had just threw up her hands, and she was like, "I can't do that with him no more."
Wow.
And so it was me. I had to step up and step in.
That's amazing.
Yeah, well,
13.
I was 13 when I started, and I kind of still am today, because if something happens with him ailment wise, he calls me. So, yep, it kind of just goes from there. So, what are some of the things that you have to deal with on either side,
Hmm.
whether it be with your son or, and I'm saying your son like he's not my nephew, but either with your son or with dad when it comes to caregiving?
Excuse me. One of the major things, um, keeping up with appointments,
Yeah.
as well as paperwork that goes on in the background for additional services, etc. Like there's a lot of different moving parts,
Hmm.
making sure that medications are administered in a timely fashion. So many different things, and I think because my son is much older now, um, getting him to buy in and be a participant in his
Hmm.
healing has been uh, a continual journey, and it
Hmm.
hasn't been easy. So
Yeah. How do you how have you been able to get him to participate um as of late?
I think most recently, and when I say most recently, I literally mean like in the past 3 weeks,
Hmm.
he just said, okay, yes, I'll take my medications.
Okay.
So when a person has a mental health diagnosis, especially one like bipolar, staying on medications is key to getting traction and, you know,
Hmm.
maintaining stability just in the life in general.
Yeah.
And so I think with him actually agreeing to take the medication,
Mhm.
it's literally been 100% better than it has been
Mhm.
in years.
Yeah. Yeah. So my dad is one who would not go to the doctor, or he wouldn't. I mean, something really had to be like, now it's an emergency visit,
Mm-hmm.
before he would be willing to address it. And my father comes from a family in which my grandmother had everything that you could think of from a herbal standpoint.
Got it.
And so he put some sass on it, drink some castor oil. It was always something.
Right.
And so he felt like he had to try those things. And it's like, it's modern medicine now. You can actually just go see a doctor and they can give you something. And, we don't have to do this anymore. And with my dad, unfortunately, it got to a point where um, I had to bring the kids in it, where it's like, they not gonna know who their granddad is. Like, if
Mm-hmm.
if you don't make it past a certain, because my parents were older when they had me,
Got
right?
it.
So I think my mom was 34, my dad was 35 when they had me. So they're already in their 70s.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so it's like, my children are younger, and at the time, I think John was maybe like 3, and I might have been pregnant with Jeremiah when I had this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, you ask God for these grandkids for all this time. My sisters don't have children, and so I had these boys, and now you are not doing the things that you need to do in order to make sure that you are a participant in their life. And
Mm-hmm.
so, what was the point of this? And I think after I had that conversation with him, he was like, oh, like the penny had finally dropped and the light bulb finally went off of, listen, you're not no spring chicken, and you might have already used your 8 lives out of your 9,
Wow.
you feline. So so if you're not going to take care of yourself in this final chapter, then you are going to meet your expiration date. And once that happens, there's no recovering from
Right.
that point. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So
I think what I find too is having the difficult conversations
yeah.
when, especially in my dad's case,
Hmm.
before some of his symptoms manifested, I tried to have the conversation of what are your wishes? What would you like done?
Oh yeah.
What would you like to see happen?
Hmm.
And his response was, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Oh,
And the thing
well,
about it is,
when you get to the bridge, it's too late.
because my parents are from that generation that did not talk about things,
Hmm.
I think it was very difficult for him to even think about
Hmm.
or approach the subject. And now that he's sick, like,
It's hard to talk about it now, like,
exactly,
because we're trying to make sure you're eating and you're getting, you're moving your body and things like that, and it's almost too real to talk about now.
exactly.
You know what I mean?
And so, what I would advise if people find themselves in a situation where, of course, if your parents or your significant people around you
Hmm.
are not ill, have a conversation when everybody is okay,
Yeah.
when everybody can think clearly, when there's no physical ailments, no
Yeah.
doctor's appointments, no extra things involved. It's much easier to have the conversation when nothing is going on.
Yeah. And I think too, this is gonna sound real crazy, but stick with me.
Okay.
You can't have you can't have caviar taste and and food stamps.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you don't have a insurance policy, one that is significant in order to do all the things that you are requiring,
Right.
then there is no other conversation to be had. I'm gonna do what I feel like is best once you kick the bucket, and there is no
Not kick the
kick
bucket.
the bucket, and there is no honoring your wishes at that point, because what I'm not gonna do is go into debt trying to put you in the ground.
I mean, it does make sense to be financially responsible. We must. because we have families that we have to take care of.
Correct. And I think that within the African American community, um, you know, I know our generation is doing a lot better with, trying to have life insurance policies,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a benefit, for a lot of our employers and things like that. But our parents, like, if their job didn't offer it, or, it wasn't a part of their pension plan or whatever the case may be, they never even thought twice about it. And so I'm noticing that, when having these conversations with my parents, and my mom is 100% healthy. Like, there's absolutely nothing wrong with her. Actually, her doctor would be like, "Why are you here?" Like, when she when she
Wow,
goes
that's
to the
great.
doctor.
That's great.
But it's like, oh, I want flowers, and I want this, and I want, a horse-drawn carriage, and I want absolutely. I don't care. I don't care. You gonna get cremated based on this policy right here. So you better go take out another policy, or you better have some money in the mattress or in the back of a TV like on Big Mama, because I don't have it.
I think there's also something to be said for planning ahead.
Yeah.
And so when you're healthy, when you're relatively young, I guess relatively young is based on where you are right now.
Right.
Plan ahead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, have your stuff in order.
Yeah.
And I think with that, it's a matter of educating yourself and not being oblivious to the process of life. Like, we're not going to be here forever.
Right.
And so just being realistic about how you can fit life insurance and those types of things, long-term care insurance, and things that you don't necessarily want to think about when you're young.
Right.
But if you plan in advance for it and get these things in place when you're young and when you're healthy, the expense is not going to be as much either.
Right.
So,
and now that you said long-term care, let me just say this real quick for our listeners. I don't know if you guys know, but I used to work in insurance. Long-term care facilities are not a part of health plans. And so nursing homes and having somebody come to the house to, take care of a loved one in private nursing, that is not and never will be covered in a plan. And so,
and when you say that, do you mean it's not covered by long-term care insurance? Is
it's
that
not,
what you're
it's
saying?
not covered by health insurance.
Got it.
So you would have to get a separate long-term care plan in order to cover those expenses, because I think people just automatically assume, like, whatever the need is, that as long as the doctor says that my loved one needs this, then the insurance company will kick in. And that's not the case. There are benefit packages that are assigned to insurance, insurance benefits. If it's through an employer, the employer gets to choose what's in the benefits. If it's not through an employer, like if it's a Medicaid or Medicare plan, they just have hard red lines. And a lot of times, long-term nursing care. So if it's a recovery type thing, like you had knee replacement surgery and you need to go to a facility for 30 days for physical therapy or whatever, those may be covered depending on your plan. But as far as we just can't take care of you anymore and we need 24/7 around the clock care, that is not covered under any plan, like Medicare, Medicaid, employer group plans, commercial insurance. Those types of services are not covered. And so even if you're not thinking about your loved one, maybe they're not sick, but maybe they're getting to a point where they can't live by themselves anymore, and they might be a fall risk, or whatever the case may be, that those services are not automatically covered by insurance. Which is why it's important to have those long-term plans, if they're available, because then you can get some help in that way.
Right. And when we say help, you mean help as far as outside of the family?
Right.
Got
So somebody being paid to take care of your loved one.
Right.
Yeah.
And then other people coming together, family
Yeah.
supporting, pitching in where they can. Because being a caregiver, what I'm finding out as I walk this caregiver journey, it's not easy.
Yeah.
And I think, being open to receiving the help, if you're a primary caregiver for a loved one, be open to receive help, because sometimes, others want to come in and help.
Yeah.
Let them help.
Yes.
You don't have to do everything by yourself.
Yeah.
And I think caregiving can be rewarding, but it can be draining
Yeah.
because you're doing, you're literally taking care of another person.
Right. Full time.
Right.
So what if you had to if you could think about one thing or maybe a series of things that you wish someone would have told you before jumping into the caregiving journey, and I will say specifically for your son,
Mm-hmm.
if there was some advice the physicians could have gave you, or once he got the diagnosis, like these are next steps, or whatever the case may be, is
Mm-hmm.
is there something that you wish that now that you would have known at the beginning of the journey?
The first thing I would say is the importance of community. One of the things that I noticed, especially with mental health, because mental illness is not something that people understand codes, people understand other physical diagnosis because
Mm-hmm.
bipolar is not necessarily an illness that you can see.
Mm-hmm.
People don't understand it.
Yeah.
And so rather than, talk about it, it's like, okay, this person is quote unquote crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Let them stay in the basement and we'll deal with them. We deal with them. And it's like,
Right.
it's not that.
Yeah.
And so the importance of community so that you're not isolated, it's important to get in community with other people who are caregivers, with other families who are also dealing with a loved one that has a mental illness. And so I think having that support around you
Mm-hmm.
helps you to see that you're not alone.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is the importance of the caregiver taking care of themselves first.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to pour yourself into supporting another person, but if you go down,
Everybody go down.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so being intentional about taking the time to care for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
whether that be getting nails done, going to the spa for a massage, taking a break to go outside for a walk if you're in an area where you can take a walk, taking yourself to lunch, like anything that you can do to pour back into yourself is super important.
Yeah.
How did you manage that? Because you were literally, like you say, you were 13 years old when
Yeah.
these things happened with your dad. Who took care of you? Like, who helped you through that?
So as far as there wasn't I couldn't do everything obviously because I was 13. I couldn't drive and all that stuff. So my mom was still running the household and the things that I couldn't do, like taking him to his appointments and things like that. And then I had to go to school.
Right.
So there was like I went to school, I went to basketball practice, and then I came home and was with dad full time once I got home. And so I don't think that at that stage I had any awareness about self care, or I just was trying to be a kid still. And I'm like, well, okay, if I go play this basketball game on Saturday, who gonna watch that? And it was those kinds of conversations that had to happen. But I was still trying to be like, it wasn't like I gave up my basketball career to help my dad. I absolutely did not. I went to go play ball, like you know what I mean. And so, and I think I think I might have done it for my dad. Like I pushed ball a lot because my father was and still is like a sports fanatic, and he played all the sports. And so it was more so like, I'm going to do this in honor of my father, even when I didn't feel like doing it for myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as self care is concerned, um, at that point, there wasn't much I could do for myself. Now for me is honestly it's boundaries, because I've been my dad's caregiver for so long, on and off. Because like I said, every time something, it was a season, literally like 10 years of like one thing would happen, we'd get healed from that, something else would drop. Um, and because of that, and because I was the primary caregiver, he felt like he had unlimited access to me. And so then it became like when he got better, he couldn't just say, hey, we used to spend all this time together regardless of why, and I miss you. Now it became come over here and cut the grass. And it's like, well, whoa, hold on now. Back up, big dog. I'm not coming to cut your grass. Well, I can't do it. You know what I'm saying? So then there was these guilt trips and, all this stuff where he would be like, well, can you run to the store and get me this? Now, mind you, I live 30 minutes from my father. It's not like I live down the street.
Got it.
Like I can swing by and, drop some bread off to him on my way home from work or something. And so, he would have all these things that he would need me to do. And it was really just his way of saying, like, hey, I miss spending time with you.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, it was like, you're putting more on me than is necessary. Like, I already gave you all this time in trying to help you be better. Now you're better and you don't want to be better because you've gotten used to people taking care of you. That's what we're not going to do. Like, I need you to get up and go, because you'll go play golf, but then you won't go get some bread from the store. Like, nah, bro, I'm not doing that. So,
how did he receive that conversation though? Because like I said, the generation ahead of us, they don't really like to talk about a lot of things, and especially directly.
Yeah. And so in my 20s, it was very aggressive is the word I'm gonna use. Because it was very like, you getting on my nerves. You are more than capable of doing this for yourself. You can stop calling me.
And did you say that?
Yes.
And he said what?
And it would be, I'm your daddy and all that I did for you. And so it was a constant fight. And so now, in my older age and me being like, oh, I get where this comes from. Mm-hmm. And so he called, even to this day, he'll call me and be like, he called me the other day and was like, my stomach been hurting all weekend and you ain't even called me to check on me. I said, oh, daddy, do you miss me? He was like, what? And I'm like, you miss me? You could have just called me and said, Erica, I miss you. And I'd have came to visit you. Is that what that was? And he'd be like, man, all right, so what y'all got going on over there? And he come all the way down. You know what I'm saying? But I had to learn those tools because when I tell you we fought, and then it would be, he would try to use the kids to get me to come over there, and he like, come bring me my grandbabies. And it's like, we busy over here. Like, we got stuff to do. They gotta go to school. What you mean? I'm not bringing nobody, so it was a constant, back and forth with that. But I think my father is it's tough when you're taking care of a parent because essentially you're playing the role as the parent, but getting the respect of the child. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, it's like, you can't tell me what to do. Well, I can, and I will, because I'm in the driver's seat now. So you got to chill. And so, there was a lot of push and pull with that, with that. But I think the more that I called a spade, because before it was, you gonna do what I say do because I said do it. And what's the alternative? Death, and it was very like rigid and tough and tough love. And anybody who knows my father, he is gonna try to out tough you every day that NY. Like, there is no, him backing down because you make sense. He will take his point to the grave just so that he can be right. You know what I'm saying? And so I had to get different tools to be able to, hey, remember when you were in the hospital for kidney stones? Okay, so based off of what you're eating and drinking now, I think you're putting yourself in a place where you're gonna develop them again.
Right.
So I would recommend that you drink some more water. And maybe you don't have to stop the pop altogether, but maybe just once, one can of pop with dinner, and then the rest of the day water. And because, Daddy, I don't want to see you in the hospital again.
Right. One of the things that I'm learning is that as far as being a caregiver for an adult child, is that a proper word?
Yeah.
Adult child.
Yes.
Being more of a advisor as opposed to a dictator. Yeah. My husband and I have very different approaches when it comes to this.
Yeah.
And so at a certain point, you have to move from being a dictator to advisor. So I can say, you need to take this medication, which may not necessarily be received as well as a conversation to say why these medications are important
Right.
and what the benefits are long term,
Right.
as far as you being safe, stable, and able to maintain, your life and to be good.
Yeah.
So I think the approach and how you bring up the conversation is very important, because dictatorships don't work with adults.
Right. And I think that's a good point just in parenting in general.
Mm-hmm.
I think that when we came from the generation of because I said so.
Exactly.
There were no explanations as to why we did the things that we did.
Exactly.
And so one thing that I've tried to teach the boys is as long as you have a follow-up question that makes sense, you're allowed to ask it. And so even with my boys and Jeremiah has some learning things that we're getting through, and he's in speech therapy. um I like you said, it's explaining what the benefits of it is, even when they're kids. Like, hey, I need for us to read for an hour a day. And when I say that, Jeremiah just, oh, please, anything but words. Like, I did words at school, the more words. And so I'm like, hey, based off of, your reading scores, though, you're not where you're supposed to be right now. And mommy really, really cares about how smart you are and how educated you are. And the fact that when mommy's not there to help you anymore, you'll be able to do things for yourself because you can read.
Exactly.
And then he goes, oh, well, that makes sense. And it's like, okay, so back to this hour. Like, we got to do this. You know what I mean? And then it's like, oh, okay, I get it now.
Right.
Whereas, like you said, when you're a part of a dictatorship, anybody who doesn't have the proper information is going to rebel. Because I don't understand why you're coming at me with all this force.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like, you gonna do it and you gonna do it right now. Well, hold on. Like, it don't matter what age you are. Everybody's first response is, okay, well, wait a minute now. Like, hold on. But if I tell you, okay, listen, we've been here before.
Yes.
And it didn't quite work out for any of the players involved. And so based on that, I think that we should change our strategy to move forward in this way. And then I think people, children, adults, older people, when you're their caregivers, will be more willing to listen, at least listen to what you have to say.
Right.
And what kind of strategy you're trying to present.
Also getting them to buy in.
Yeah.
Because you're literally there to support them.
Yeah.
It's not like you want to be, in this role where you are dependent heavily upon.
Yeah.
Like, let's sit together and work on a plan for your success. And so getting the buy-in is key.
Yeah. Agreed. So if there was some advice that you would give to someone who may be transitioning into caring for an adult parent or elderly parent rather, or may have a child who just received a diagnosis, no matter the age, because they're able to diagnose
Right.
a little earlier now. What other than the self-care, which is super duper important, is there anything else that you would give them?
Like I said before, the power of community should not be overlooked. I think a lot of times when you are a caregiver, and especially what I found in the space of mental health, because a lot of people don't understand all of the inner workings and all the things that go along with mental health, there's some shame around the conversation of a family member that may have a bipolar diagnosis or any other mental health challenge. And so the thing about being in community is it shows you that you're not by yourself. And, being in those spaces where people are going through the same thing as you is very encouraging. And to be able to share the not so easy times with people that are going through similar situations is very helpful. And so not being ashamed to, number one, be involved in community, and then sharing your struggles within that community is very important. And I think people, isolate themselves because they don't know how to talk about these things.
Yeah.
And so I think the community piece is very important.
I I agree. I think that and I'm gonna go churchy for a minute, but I'm gonna come right back. I think that one of the lies that we are told consistently by the enemy is that you are alone.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that his goal is when you are alone, then you can start to create a narrative
Yep.
around your loneliness, right?
Exactly.
Nobody understands me, nobody gets it. I'm doing this by myself, and then it now enters the negative self talk. I'm not good enough to do this.
Yep.
I'm not strong enough to do this. I don't know if I can do it, and all the other things that come with that. And so I bring that up because one of the things that I've been working with John with, but has been like really big conversations just in general,
Mm-hmm.
is being able to challenge the thought, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what I'm teaching John is because, I don't want to say he suffers from anxiety, but I see all of the signs of a kid who is anxious and pessimistic,
Yeah.
right? And so I'm trying to help his brain work out of that, right? To allow you to be optimistic, because if you challenge the thought of what you're saying to yourself,
Mm-hmm.
if it didn't come from God, throw it out,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it could come from you or it could come from the enemy. And that don't mean that it lines up with what we know about ourselves, right? And so I think that that was some of the issue with me as a caregiver,
Yeah.
is because I was so young. I'm 13, 14, trying to, get my dad in a wheelchair and, out of a wheelchair. And,
That's a lot
you
for a
know,
child.
it is. And going to doctor's appointments with him and trying to figure out how to be a patient advocate where I never even really had to go to the doctor because, I'm 14. I ain't even did nothing yet.
Mm-hmm.
So other than, immunizations and,
Right.
kid stuff. So, it started very early of I'm not the one that's supposed to be doing this. Like, I'm not like, why me, and negative self talk started. But I had to get to a place where I had, like, maybe this is a part of the assignment that God has me here for.
Right.
Like, maybe this is a character building moment. Maybe this is some information that I'm gonna need for later. And I am able to do it because God has put me in a position to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So he's already given me the tools, and I'm not failing.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm doing it. It might not look pretty. Like, it's like baking a cake. I mean, the cake might not be sexy, but is it edible? Can you eat it? Okay, then we
Right.
got something right. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think when you think about being a caregiver, just being able to give yourself grace,
I agree.
and when you speak to yourself about the issues, I know they're tough, they're very hard sometimes, but just being able to say, hey, I'm doing the best that I can with what I have right now. And as long as you're always willing to get more
Yep.
tools and better yourself, and get a better understanding of certain things that may help you, then it's just a journey.
It
it's
is a journey.
it's a journey.
It is a journey. I think one of the things that I am learning too is when you're a caregiver is kind of a learn as you go, because what I, you know, most recently I had to push my dad in a wheelchair.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, I need to put the lock on the wheel so that he doesn't roll away. And
Yeah.
so being gentle with myself to say, I've never really used a wheelchair before.
Right. It looks simple enough.
Flip this thing down for his feet.
Right.
Go slow. Be careful on the curbs. Like,
Yeah.
Lord, please help me, because I don't know how to easily navigate a wheelchair.
Right.
I'm learning as I go. But like you said, being gentle with yourself
Yeah.
as you learn, as you go.
Yeah.
And I think another thing too, the patient needs to be gentle with the caregiver,
Yes.
because you are in a position of being served. The
Right.
person that's, the patient
Right.
is being served, and you want to be gentle with the person that is there to support and help you. And so for you to have a short temper
Mhm.
or maybe be very agitated. And of course, you could be agitated for a number of different reasons. Maybe you're in pain, maybe you're just not feeling the greatest.
Right.
Be gentle with your caregiver
Right.
because they're there to support you, and you don't want to lash out um, to the person that's helping you.
Right.
Be gentle with your people.
Yeah,
That's what I would say.
I agree. And I think also when it comes to, being able to give yourself grace as the patient, you're giving your caregiver grace, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they don't know what they don't know. But also give yourself grace as the patient. You don't know what you don't know either. And although your caregiver may be the one who has assigned themselves as the person who's trying to get the information for you, nine, 8 times out of 10, they're not a physician or a healthcare worker. And then, it's okay for you not to understand things as well. My dad used to get very frustrated with that. Like, we would be sitting in a doctor's office and I would talk to the physician and, we would get an understanding of what's going on. And then I would just wheel my dad out and he would be like, I don't know what y'all just said.
Wow.
I don't know what y'all talking about. What happened? Like, what's wrong? And he would get so frustrated
Mm-hmm.
that he didn't understand the conversation that the physician and I would have. But you didn't you're not a healthcare professional either. You know what I'm saying? I did the research to get to this point
Mm-hmm.
to understand, what they're saying and the terminology and the language and the lingo and all the things, but you didn't,
Right.
because I was doing that for you.
Right.
So I used to tell him all the time, like, after we had that conversation, I was like, oh, well, if you want me to translate and, put it in layman's terms, live. So if you have any additional questions, I can do that. And so now that's exactly what I do. Like if I
That's
go
great.
to an appointment with him, the doctor will talk, for a minute and I'm like, okay, I understand. And then I look at daddy and I go, do you understand? And he, no. Okay, so what he said was your
That makes
kidneys
sense.
is not doing well, and you drink too much pop. Remember we talked about that? Okay, cool. So he's saying that you got to do this, that, and the third. Do you got any questions? And then he's able to ask his questions and be a part of his care.
That makes sense.
Um, a little bit more when you're being an advocate in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I wish somebody would have told me that early on because I was just like, Daddy, I got it. And he'd
Mm-hmm.
be like, nigga, this is my body. Like, what is you doing?
Mm-hmm.
And so, I had to learn how to start to bridge the gap. And I know a lot of times when you are a parent, you've been an advocate for them their whole life. And so you're used to just taking it and running. You
Exactly.
know what I mean? But I would encourage, other parents, even if you have young children, explain to them what's going on with their bodies,
Mm-hmm.
or explain what's going on with their minds. And so, they have information on their level to be able to, look stuff up
Mm-hmm.
or ask questions or, in my opinion, it would help with the buy-in. Like if I understand what's going on, then I understand why I'm taking the meds versus your brain just doesn't act like the way everybody else's does. So take these. Like, what does that mean? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
what's wrong? Like, and so, yeah, just being able to explain things more and, you know, be able to, bridge the gaps. I think that's the point of a caregiver. It's just bridging gaps.
Amen.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
So good.
So that's a wrap, family. Send us your questions, your shareable stories, or testimonies about your Black Sheep experiences. If you are a caregiver, or if you know someone who is, or um, you saw this episode and you know a caregiver, send it to them. We uh, would like to be able to answer your questions. We would like to start the conversation in the comments below, if you have any experiences, because if you do not have a community, we can build one. And
Right.
that's the beautiful part about this podcast is, we understand the importance of community, and we want to be able to be a bridge as a podcast to offer resources and things like that. So if you know somewhere that may be doing support groups, or maybe your church has something, then we can open those lines of communication up in the comments, so that somebody can get the help that they need. And even if we're just helping one person, that's one person that doesn't feel overwhelmed and can move forward with being the best them that they can be for themselves as well as their loved ones.
And I can also share some resources. So maybe we
Sure.
can put a PDF together so
Sure.
that people can download information related to mental health.
Now I know you have socials in which you share your journey personally. Let the people know where they can find you.
On Instagram, I am at Lamika's Life, and I'm not active on Facebook. So just find me on Instagram, Lamika's Life. That's all.
That's all. But she posts about her caregiving journey, as well as some information about her son's journey, and resources and things are there as well. So yep, we'll get something together and post it for the people. If you would like to become a sponsor, please feel free to email us at admin@finallyherd.com. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to at Finally Heard, HERD, on all social media outlets. We are on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. Listen, if you on Facebook, you saw that there was a little bit of scrap in my reels the other week. So there's always something new for you to see. Make sure you join us for those things. Also, right now we are running a kind of a contest, I guess. Listen, we haven't. I'm very ambitious. We have entered into a contest on Spotify that if this month we get 100 views, that or listens, that we will be entered into another contest to get some support as
That's
far
excellent.
as like funding and sponsorship and that kind of thing. So listen, if you watch this on YouTube today, I appreciate you. We need those likes and views as well. Go over to Spotify. I'm going to link it below, and rewatch this episode. Play it in the background. Put it on when you're in the shower. Let it be noise when you cook. Let it play upstairs while you're downstairs. Listen, I don't care if you don't hear my voice again. We just need the views. Amen. Amen. So let that run in the background. And we just want to say thank you guys for following and subscribing and listening and being super supportive. We have a lot of content coming down the pipeline, and we would love for you to be here. All right. So thank you for listening to the Finally Heard podcast. I'm your girl E.
I am Lamika.
And we are the ones that he came back for. Until next week, guys. Bye.